Hello, and welcome to a special Christmas Eve episode of Inside the Helmet. I'm your host, Michael. I'm your only host today. My dad, with it being Christmas Eve and all that, is busy with some other stuff. So we're doing a solo episode this week, but that is absolutely fine. We've got a lot of fun things to talk about. First off, I wanted to talk about maybe the most interesting story to come about the NFL, and certainly this year, in a crazy year like this season has been. It almost seems ludicrous to declare any one story the, I guess, best or most interesting story of the season, but I think we have one, and that is Philip Rivers. 44-year-old Philip Rivers, drafted in 2004, returning after 5 years of retirement. Dude was basically Hall of Fame eligible. I think he was Hall of Fame eligible. He comes off the couch to play for the Indianapolis Colts after Daniel Jones goes down. First of all, the thought just came into my mind of, man, I feel bad for Anthony Richardson. Certainly, I don't think he deserves to be the starter right now. He's not proven to be a trustworthy starter in the NFL. Very, very inconsistent. A lot of mental errors, lacking accuracy severely. So, but I feel bad for him regardless. To be beaten out by a 44-year-old quarterback who is basically, as slow as dirt, and always was, even in his prime. And he comes off the couch after 5 years of retirement and beats you out to be the starter. But regardless, I never would have thought, ever, let alone in 2025, that I'd be saying that Philip Rivers is one of my favorite quarterbacks in the NFL. He is so fun to watch. I keep seeing people on social media posting clips of him like shouting out audibles and diagnosing the defense at the line. And that is so incredible to see. So many people are recognizing that that is an art form at the quarterback position that we have lost dearly in the past 5 years, even the past decade or so, as the quarterback position has transitioned much more into a physical game rather than the mental game that the great quarterbacks of the 2000s and early 2010s, and then, of course, before that. But the 2000s and 2010s is where we saw the all-time great cerebral quarterbacks like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, namely, but as well, you of course had people like Drew Brees, very, very intelligent in his own right, Philip Rivers, who's still doing it now, which is incredible to see. It's incredible seeing Philip Rivers going deep in the big 2025. That, man, it takes me back. I'm a pocket passer. Y'all may or may not know that about me, depending on how well you know me. So I don't really care for this hyper physical aspect of quarterback play when it comes to running and scrambling around. I love watching a quarterback stand there in the shotgun, look at all the enemies, all the opponents, and just pick them apart before they even take the snap. I always loved that about the great quarterbacks like Peyton Manning, how they would just know what the defense was doing before the snap, and they'd be able to execute their game plan with absolute perfection. It's so incredible to watch the mental aspect of football. That's something that I believe has been so dearly missing, especially at the quarterback position. I think coaches are maybe smarter than ever and more innovative than ever. Certainly with coaches like Andy Reid, John Harbaugh, being able to create schemes for their hyper physical quarterbacks who are just absolute specimens. Don't get me wrong, that is still absolutely special. Nothing necessarily against that, but I do believe that there is a big gap in the average football fan's heart. Certainly football fans that have been watching, from the 2010s, 2000s, and farther back, of that Peyton Manning, Tom Brady type of play, where they beat you with their mind, not having to rely on raw athleticism. And that is something that it is such a breath of fresh air. It is such a wave of nostalgia. Seeing Philip Rivers being able to come in and do what he's been doing. He's unfortunately yet to win a game, following narrowly to the Seahawks, and then falling to the 49ers when his defense let him down. But it's absolutely incredible to see. Will he be back next year? God only knows. But it would be really cool to see him get a whole year as the starter, because he's, and other people have been saying it too, I'm not crazy here to say that he's an above average quarterback, especially considering he came off the couch. He hasn't played football in 5 years. If he gets an off season under his belt to like really get back in shape and all that, like, he could be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL next year. And I think a lot of people would love to see that. Certainly I would. I really hope that Philip Rivers ends up staying for another year. I think that would be great to see this show continue. Anyway, the other thing I had planned, we're not going to talk about any F1 because it's, of course, the off season. There's not really much to talk about. Other than, well, actually, no, I lied. We're going to talk a little bit about it because just came back to my mind that, of course, with the new regulations coming out for the cars, teams are, of course, working their tails off to design their car, and we haven't seen these new cars on track at all, so we don't know how they're going to be, how fast they're going to be, how good the racing is going to be. Hopefully it's going to be better because the cars are going to be smaller, so they'll be able to go side by side a lot better. But we can only hope that that's actually going to be how it is. But both Mercedes and Red Bull play the clip of in Harry Potter where McGonagall is speaking to Harry, Ron, and Hermione, and she's like, why is it when something happens it's always you three, but instead it's always you two, with it being Red Bull and Mercedes? The particularly, specifically, is what I meant to say, their engines. Red Bull and Mercedes have been figuring out loopholes, because of course they have, to get extra performance out of their engines, which could give them a leg up on the other teams like Ferrari and the Aston Martin with the Honda engines. So that is certainly exciting to see. I've seen a lot of people already on social media calling for the FIA to step in and regulate this, but I stand on the side that says no. Take us back to the 70s when Formula One teams were really allowed to go crazy with it and innovate and find loopholes. And if you didn't like it, then figure something out to beat it. Formula One is an engineering sport just as much as it is a driving sport. And I think they're taking a lot of the ingenuity and innovation out of the team's ability to design the cars by hyper regulating everything, basically relegating it to being a spec series almost. With all the teams basically having to build the same car. As great and competitive as last year was, last year was the tightest the field has ever been. Tightest being like, how fast the fastest teams were to the slowest. Now, yeah, it's not like we had a 10-way fight for the constructors. There were still clearly faster cars and slower cars, but the gap between the fastest car and the slowest car in terms of actual lap time is, I think, the narrowest it has ever been in Formula One history. And as great as that is, it makes it unpredictable. I still like there being kind of a wide field spread and teams, that maybe figured something out, having a leg up. Even if it is McLaren, if the McLaren engineers can build an absolutely amazing car, then I'll give props to them, no matter how badly I hate watching a McLaren driver win. Especially if it's Lando. I can give props where they're due to the engineers for making a great car. I can feel bad for them when Lando tries to take all the credit and downplays how good the car is. That's another story. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about that because I remembered it. Now, what I actually want to talk about is kind of give a little overview because we are coming to the end of the NFL regular season. The Cowboys were eliminated from the playoffs before they even took the field against the Chargers on Sunday because the Eagles the night before beat the Commanders to go up to, what are they now? 10-5. The best the Cowboys could do before losing to the Chargers was 9-7-1. So they were eliminated already. And then they went and lost to the Chargers, so they'd be eliminated anyway. Regardless, I wanted to kind of talk about where we stand with the with all the standings. For anyone who maybe hasn't quite been as up to date on everything, so we're going to start here. I have ESPN pulled up. We're going to start with the AFC East. The New England Patriots currently lead the division at 12-3. Following them closely are the Buffalo Bills at 11-4. Both of those teams have clinched a playoff spot. And then the Miami Dolphins at 6-9 are eliminated from the playoffs and third in the division. And then rearing the AFC East are the 3-4 New York Jets. Moving on to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are leading the AFC North at 9-6. The Baltimore Ravens are in second place at 7-8. Neither of those teams have clinched a playoff spot, as I believe the only way for either of them to make it would be to win the division, and of course, it's anybody's game still, as the Ravens could win out and edge the Steelers out if they lose out, but it is looking like it is the Steelers' spot to lose. And then following them are the 5-10 Cincinnati Bengals, who have, of course, been eliminated from the playoffs, as have the fourth place 3-12 Cleveland Browns. Moving on to the AFC South, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars sitting at 11-4, which is incredible. I don't think anyone saw that coming. They have clinched a playoff spot, but not the division yet, because sitting right on their heels are the 10-5 Houston Texans, who are in second place of the division. Then third place, not quite eliminated yet, but I saw after losing to the 49ers, the Indianapolis Colts, who currently sit at 8-7, have an 8% chance to make the playoffs, so not quite ideal. It would be amazing. We opened up talking about Phillip Rivers and how much I'm loving that story this year. It'd be great if he could lead them into the playoffs. And it's very sad how they had this meteoric start, coming out of absolutely nowhere, looking like the best team in football, only to fall off the way they have. And then, of course, last and, least, are the Tennessee Titans, of course, eliminated from the playoffs. Excuse me. Because they're 3-12. It is not the Titans' year. They held the number one pick last year, where they took Cam Ward, of course, and he's actually just recently broken the record for the Tennessee Titans for passing yards in a season by a rookie in Titans history, which is, of course, good for him. He hopefully has a bright young future ahead of him. I'm rooting for him. I haven't been watching the Titans that closely because who outside Tennessee has? But I can root for Cam Ward, certainly. And then finishing off the AFC, we have the Denver Broncos in the lead at 12-3. They have clinched a playoff spot, as have the 11-4 Los Angeles Chargers. They've also clinched a playoff spot, and they are right on the heels of the Broncos. Then in third place, no one saw this coming, are the 6-9 Kansas City Chiefs, who are now down two quarterbacks after, of course, Patrick Mahomes went down against the Chargers a couple weeks ago with a torn ACL, and that loss knocked them out of the playoffs. And then I think the very next week, they lost Gardner Minshew, their backup quarterback, so that's very unfortunate. And then they had, I don't know if the official announcement has come out yet, or if it just is coming, but word on the street, at least, is that they are going to be moving out of Missouri, and they'll be actually moving to Kansas. So, very, very interesting time in Kansas City. And then I just used this joke, but last and actually least this time are the Raiders of Las Vegas, sitting at 2-13. Certainly a year to forget for all Raiders fans. And of course, they are also eliminated from the playoffs. They are in number one overall pick contention. Moving on, we have the NFC East, which we already touched on a little bit, led by the Philadelphia Eagles, who are sitting at 10-5. They have clinched a playoff spot. They've clinched the division as well. Then behind them in second place are my Dallas Cowboys, sitting at 6-8-1. Of course, just being eliminated from the playoffs this past weekend. Then we have the Commanders of Washington, also eliminated, sitting at 4-11. And then we have, I'm not going to say the joke 3 times in a row, but the New York Giants, needless to say, also eliminated from the playoffs because they're sitting at 2-13. Although strangely, one of those wins was against the Eagles. It's been a weird year, man. Speaking of weird, in the NFC North, the Chicago Bears have claimed a playoff spot because they are sitting at 11-4, which is absurd. Even though they acquired Ben Johnson, the old offensive coordinator from the Lions, to be their head coach, I don't think anybody quite saw this type of rise out of them. So if you're a Chicago Bears fan, you must be absolutely loving this. Behind them are the 9-5-1 Green Bay Packers. They have not clinched a playoff spot, nor have they been eliminated. Same goes for the 8-7 Detroit Lions in third in the division. And then the 7-8 Minnesota Vikings have been eliminated from the playoffs. I don't think at this stage in the year we have a single division where all teams are still in contention, which not really a surprise, but actually the NFC North has 3 teams in contention still, but only one has clinched a spot, and then in the NFC West, we'll get to them last, but they still have 3 teams that have all clinched a spot. We'll get to that in a second. Because first we got to talk about the NFC South, which is currently now being led by the Carolina Panthers, who just took down the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to move themselves to 8-7 and move the Bucs down from at one point being 5-1, I believe, or so, to now being 7-8. We talked about the Colts having a real fall off. It seems like the Buccaneers are kind of the Colts of the NFC minus Phillip Rivers. I think all they needed to do was have Baker Mayfield get hurt and have Tom Brady come back, and that would have just been really funny. Not if Baker got hurt. That sounded weird. I like Baker Mayfield. I don't want him to get hurt. He was actually one of my early season MVP picks through like the first 3 weeks. But it's kind of sad to see how they've fallen off. But both teams are still in it to win the division. That none of them are going to get a wild card spot, of course. But of course, either team could still clinch the division. And then, of course, the Atlanta Falcons, sitting at 6-9, are eliminated, as are the 5-10 New Orleans Saints. They've actually kind of picked it up. I kind of thought earlier in the year they'd be around that 2 or 3 win territory with the Giants and the Raiders and the Titans. But no, they're actually a step above them. So good for you, Saints. And then finally, the most competitive division in football, the NFC West, where they are led currently by the Sam Darnold-led Seattle Seahawks, sitting at 12-3. And they are genuinely looking like one of the best teams in football, which is very crazy to see. I don't know if people saw them being quite this good. I think a lot of people thought that they'd be pretty good, but not quite like this. So very interesting to see. Then we have the 49ers of San Francisco, sitting at 11-4, same as the Los Angeles Rams. The 49ers are second in the division, the Rams are third, but both teams are 11-4, and all 3 teams, the Seahawks, 49ers, and Rams, have clinched a playoff spot and have a chance to win the division. No one has claimed the crown yet. And then we have the Arizona Cardinals rearing up this awesome division, sitting at 3-12, and of course they are eliminated from the playoffs. So that is, if you have not been keeping up with the divisional standings for the NFL, there it is. Before we go, I'll also open up the playoff standings just to share the seeds currently. Start with the AFC. The Broncos currently sit first seeded in the AFC at 12-3. Right behind them are the New England Patriots, also at 12-3. In third are the Jacksonville Jaguars at 11-4, and then the Steelers, because they currently lead the AFC North, are fourth. Then in fifth, we have the Chargers at 11-4. In sixth, we have the Buffalo Bills at 11-4. And in seventh, we have the Houston Texans at 10-5. Then, of course, in the hunt are still the Colts, who could clinch a wild card spot over the Texans, and the Ravens could take the division from the Steelers. And then everyone from Kansas City down is eliminated. Then, moving over to the NFC, sorry, we just did the AFC. We have the Seattle Seahawks in first at 12-3. We have the Chicago Bears at 11-4 in second. We have the 10-5 Philadelphia Eagles in third. And then the Carolina Panthers, sitting at 8-7, are fourth in the NFC right now. Then for our wild card teams, we have the 49ers, of course, at 11-4, same as the Rams, in the 6th seed at 11-4, and then the Packers currently hold the 7th seed at 9-5-1. The only teams that are still in the hunt are the Detroit Lions, who could knock the Packers out of a wild card spot. They're currently 8-7, so they'd have to win out and have the Packers lose out. For them to be, Packers would be 9-7-1, and the Detroit Lions would be 10-7. So they would get the edge by having one more win instead of a tie. And then the Buccaneers are the 10 seed, and they are currently in contention because they could still take the division from the Panthers. That is, for all my Cowboys fans, we are currently the 11 seed. So, before I go, want to give My final predictions for if any changes are going to happen. I think that in the AFC, I think the Bills will end up moving over the Chargers to take the 5 seed. I think the Texans are going to hold on to that 7 seed, and the Colts will miss the playoffs, unfortunately. I think the Ravens are also going to miss the playoffs, and the Steelers are going to hang on to the division. In the NFC, I think that the Eagles are going to edge out the Chicago Bears for the 2 seed. I think the Panthers are going to hold on to the NFC South. I think the Rams are going to take the 5 seed from the 49ers. I think the Lions are going to take the 7 seed from the Packers. Those are my predictions. We will come back in a couple weeks and see if that actually happens. But for now, this has been kind of a shorter episode of Inside the Helmet. Didn't really have quite as much to go over. I just wanted to kind of give an update on where the standings are, as well as provide some commentary on the whole Philip Rivers thing. I know I predicted the Colts to miss the playoffs. I certainly hope I'm wrong. I just kind of had to go with my gut there. Honestly, I wouldn't mind either team making the playoffs, but I just think the Texans are currently riding the momentum up, and the Colts are unfortunately riding it downwards to no fault of Mr. Philip Rivers. So I wonder if he can win Comeback Player of the Year. I think he should. That's another prediction. Philip Rivers, so long as he is eligible for it, despite not playing the whole year, so long as he's eligible, Philip Rivers for Comeback Player of the Year. I'm calling it. I mean, who else can take it over him? Anyway, we'll see. Thank you guys for tuning in to this episode. I hope you enjoyed. Come back next week for another exciting episode of Inside the Helmet. Be sure to check us out on all our social medias. Follow my gaming channels as well, MSL12 Games on Instagram and YouTube. And then I also post those videos on my TikTok, Michael Ludi Quarterback Trainer. I also put coaching and football related videos on there too. It's kind of all in one. Anyway, I've been your host, Michael, and I will see you guys next time. Merry Christmas.